Happy Monday, and welcome back to ATVN Sports. I'm Daniel Palmore. After leading Colorado by as many as 27 points on Saturday, USC fans were on the edge of their seats as the Trojans narrowly escaped Boulder with a 48-41 win over the Buffaloes. USC never trailed against Colorado after jumping out to a 21-0 lead early. Quarterback Caleb Williams threw a season-high 6 touchdown passes, but USC was shut out in the fourth quarter, and the Trojans' defense surrendered 27 second-half points. Anthony, the Trojans remain undefeated, closer win than expected. Do you have any concerns for the team heading into next week? Anthony, you bring up some good points about the Trojan defense, and it wasn't good, but I want to shed some positive light on the USC offense because Caleb Williams had another spectacular game, over 400 yards passing, 4 TDs. Brendan Rice in his homecoming to Colorado, 2 touchdowns. Taj Washington, another spectacular game, over 100 yards and a touchdown. And Marshawn Lloyd is looking like he's establishing himself as the clear-cut #1 running back on this team. Football was not the only team in action against Colorado over the weekend. Women's volleyball extended its winning streak to 9 in a row after beating the Buffaloes in 4 sets on Sunday. Skylar Fields led the way for the Trojans with 23 kills, and Mia Tuaniga added 45 assists, 6 digs, 3 kills, and a block. The Trojans' season-long 9-game winning streak is USC's longest since a 22-game win streak to open up the 2015 season. And some basketball news, Los Angeles Lakers star LeBron James has an update for USC fans on Bronny's status. You heard it from the king himself. If Bronny is able to get back on the court for USC at any point this season, the Trojans will be must-see TV.
The Trojans have really high expectations coming into the season. Daniel, what do you expect from them? How do you think they'll play?
I'm expecting a lot of big things from the USC men's basketball team this year, and I want to focus on the backcourt. Returning senior Boogie Ellis averaged 17.7 points per game last year. You got Isaiah Collier coming in, #1 recruit in the class of 2023. And Bronny's status is still a little uncertain, but I think I'm going to be looking forward to those young guys contributing to a USC team that really has no excuses to compete with some of the best in the Pac-12. And I'm also looking forward to seeing what Vince Iwuchukwu can do this year. Big man, a lot of expectations last year, had his season cut short, so I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in a full season of play. Should be a very exciting season for sure. Safety Shiloh Sanders is currently listed as questionable for Saturday's game, with hopes to play after being taken to the hospital following Colorado's loss versus Oregon. Wide receiver and cornerback Travis Hunter is still recovering from a liver injury sustained against Colorado State. Here's head coach Deion Sanders talking Hunter's status. Bring up a lot of great points there, and I'm looking at this from USC's perspective. I still don't think they can take this Colorado team lightly. I think a big reason why the performance against Arizona State was not what we were looking for was because maybe the bye week contributed to it. Maybe they didn't think much of ASU heading into the game. They got shut out, had 8 turnovers, and it was a battle, not that they were expecting that, and I think that's going to be the case this Saturday in Colorado as well. NFL fans were treated to a Super Bowl 56 rematch last night between the Rams and Bengals on Monday Night Football. Unlike the matchup 2 years ago, this time it was the Bengals coming out on top. Third-year wide receiver Jamar Chase had his way with the Los Angeles defense as he had his best game of the season with 12 catches for 141 yards. Quarterback Matthew Stafford's 2 interceptions proved costly as the Bengals won by a score of 19-16. The Bengals avoided an 0-3 start to the season with the win, while the Rams saw their record drop to 1-2 on the season. Both teams will be back in action on Sunday.
Daniel, the season is not even over, and now the team doesn't even have a defensive coordinator. What do they need to do moving forward?
Well, Anthony, I don't think it's going to have that big of an impact in the short term because with 2 games remaining, USC plays Oregon. I think the chances were already slim that they were going to win that game. So you just have to hope that with the new DC that will be hired, the defensive side of the ball will be addressed as much as the offense is, so USC can be a more balanced team next year as they move to the Big Ten, where they will play much tougher opponents. And college hoops are officially underway at USC as number 21 women's basketball traveled to Vegas and took down number 7 Ohio State in their Hall of Fame series matchup. The highly anticipated debut of freshman guard Juju Watkins did not disappoint as she scored 32 points, grabbed 6 rebounds, and dished out 5 assists. Junior center Rhea Marshall made her impact felt on both ends of the floor with 18 points, 17 rebounds, 6 steals, and 2 blocks. The Trojans had a strong showing for their first game, and even their coach agreed. Next up for the Trojans is their home opener against Florida Gulf Coast this Friday. Tip-off is set for 7 p.m., and the first 1,000 fans in attendance will receive a free t-shirt. And with all the big basketball and football stories, Anthony and I will get you caught up on some under-the-radar sports news on this week's edition of In Case You Missed It. In water polo, after losing narrowly in USC's last matchup against Stanford, the Trojans got their revenge on Saturday. Number 4 USC upset number 3 Stanford and was led by a team-high 3 goals from Andrej Grgovic and goalie Bernardo Herzer's career-high 14 saves. In what was the last matchup between USC and Cal for the foreseeable future, the Trojans escaped Berkeley with a 50-49 win over the Golden Bears. After trailing 28-17 at halftime, USC outscored Cal 33-21 in the second half to earn its 7th win of the season. Quarterback Caleb Williams' 4 total touchdowns and running back Marshawn Lloyd's 115 yards and 2 touchdowns greatly contributed to the Trojans' comeback effort. Well, Anthony, those are great points, but I want to look at USC's defense. The key to me in this game is going to be slowing down Michael Penix Jr., who has nearly 3,000 passing yards on the season and 24 touchdowns. They gave up over 500 yards of total offense to Cal and obviously 49 points on Saturday. So I think forcing more turnovers is going to be very key for last week. We're going to need a couple this week against Washington. And guys like Eric Gentry, who had 6 tackles, a forced fumble, and an interception, are going to have big games if USC is going to have a chance to knock off Washington on Saturday. Number 23 women's soccer got back to its winning ways on Sunday after a 2-0 win over Cal. The victory over the Golden Bears snapped a 4-game winless streak. In what was the final home game of the regular season for USC, the Trojans got goals from freshman forward Maribel Flores and junior forward Izzy Kimberly. The Trojans shut out their opponent for the 9th time this season and improved their record to 10-3-3. USC closes out regular season play on Friday with a matchup against UCLA. The game against the number 2 Bruins starts at 7 p.m. Friday at Wallace Annenberg Stadium. And maybe there is hope after all for the USC defense. Over the weekend, the Trojans received a commitment from 5-star cornerback Brandon Lockhart. Out of Loyola High School in Los Angeles, Lockhart is the consensus number 1 cornerback in the class of 2026. The Trojans went dunk hunting in Eugene over the weekend and came up empty-handed as number 6 Oregon proved to be too much for USC in the 36-27 loss. Alex Grinch wasn't coaching the USC defense over the weekend, but the Trojans still struggled mightily as Bo Nix lit up the secondary for 412 yards and 4 touchdowns. Wide receivers Troy Franklin and Tez Johnson combined for 3 of those 4 touchdown passes and 273 yards. Let's hear from defensive end Jamil Muhammad on USC's approach heading into the game. And number 8 women's soccer took care of business in its opening matchup of the NCAA tournament with a 1-0 home victory over Grand Canyon on Friday. USC was able to escape with a victory in a defensive battle after junior midfielder Helena Sampaio nailed a penalty kick in the 66th minute. It was the 10th shutout of the season for the Trojans and the first tournament win under head coach Jane Alukonis. Across town, the Trojans' main rival in UCLA was upset 1-0 in its first-round matchup of the tournament against UC Irvine. The Bruins lost after a late goal was scored in the 86th minute by junior forward Alyssa Moore to eliminate the number 1 seed Bruins. Tournament action continues for the Trojans on Thursday as USC will hit the road for its second-round matchup. The Trojans face number 1 seeded BYU at 6 p.m. And USC's Juju Watkins and Bronny James are 2 of 4 players that are a part of Nike's historic retail launch to sell college basketball jerseys with active players' names on the back. The other 2 players are Iowa's Caitlin Clark and UConn's Paige Beckers.
Daniel, given how this season started out, do you think this team is all hype?
Well, Anthony, that's what it's beginning to look like at the beginning of the season. Coach Enfield just talked about it, the turnovers. Against Oklahoma, USC had 11 turnovers, and in the loss against UC Irvine, 16 turnovers. So not being able to beat the teams that USC should be able to beat based on the talent they have is definitely something that concerns me to open up the season.
And we have a third in case you missed it today. It's our last show.
That's right. We are finishing up with a slam dunk on the semester. Thank you for watching Monday ATVN Sports all semester long. I'm Daniel Palmore.
And I'm Anthony Bettino. Now let's send it over to Tess to find out your new restaurant stop.